Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Before we start today's Would You Rather question, would you rather be able to read minds or predict the future? Let me know in the comment section down below. Our first story today comes to us from Punk Tyrantosaurus. Fire me because I did my job? Okay. Hope you don't need all of these supplies. Let's jump right in. I love taking photos of people, to the point that I have 2 resumes for applying for jobs, and one of them is specifically for photography work. So I was psyched when I got a job in a photo studio. It was a chain and it wasn't like high quality work, but it was still awesome. I took a lot of photos of very cute babies in particular. Well, the company had a 3-strike policy. Once there were 3 issues with you, you were gone. They made you sign off on every single one of the reports. It didn't matter how much later it was that you got your next strike, they never went away. Okay, doesn't seem like a great business model, but okay. And being fair, I did get 2 strikes, which were very reasonable. One day I missed work because I forgot to set an alarm. It was a super irregular schedule and it wasn't always easy to keep track of. The next strike happened because I scheduled a photo shoot for before the beginning of a shift accidentally. The program was supposed to only show you times that an employee would be available for doing photo shoots, and they changed our hours with very little warning. So the photo shoot that I had scheduled the week before that would have been within our hours was no longer. I felt super bad for the mom and daughter who came in early for their photos and helped them sort everything out with a free photo redemption in apology. I still got my second strike for that. Now, the last strike. I actually got 2 on the same day. Around Christmas, our store goes nuts. We have to have twice as many people working in order to keep everything in order. During that, I was training a new employee and helping with her photo shoots and my own, and running cash and taking passport photos and teaching her the rules for them, and. It was a nightmare. What made it worse was that one customer submitted 2 complaints that day about me. See, this customer felt I was pushing her to buy photos. Literally all this company cares about is pushing the photo packages, and I was instructed relentlessly to do it more and with more energy because I didn't make enough people feel they had to have them. So great. I convinced a customer to spend money instead of just giving them free things and not getting $1 from them, like the company was always yelling at me to do. And I got a complaint for that. Great. And then the other complaint was even more ludicrous. The customer felt I was being too bossy with the other photographer, the one that I was training, the one that didn't know how to do the job yet, so I had to tell her how to do things. Apparently, I deserve to be fired for telling her how to do things. I was heartbroken. It's been a few years now, so I've gotten over it, but I was so happy working as a photographer. But here's where the malicious compliance finally kicks in. See, by my nature, I end up doing a lot of work that isn't actually my job because I want to help. I enjoy feeling useful, but they're firing me because they don't want me to sell things or train people like they had told me to do. So for the last 2 weeks of my job, I stopped counting all of the money for deposits. That was the manager's job, even though she hadn't done it in half a year since making me do it. This meant she had to come in on days that she didn't work just to do the deposit. I stopped actively recruiting customers, which is what you're supposed to do in your downtime. Cold call previous customers and prowl around the attached mall for people you can convince to get photos. The best tactic was always to find people with new young ones, tell them how beautiful their baby is, offer them a free print of one of the photos after a shoot. Almost no one passes that up because they have a wonderful photo to hold on to. I didn't feel guilty doing it because genuinely it makes people happy. I stopped taking meticulous notes of every interaction that was worth following up on. I used to make notes for the next shift about how X customer had seemed interested but was unconvinced and that a simple reminder of the offer would probably be enough to get them to buy. Or I would make a note about someone who forgot their passport photos and whether or not they had paid already. And then, on my last day, the truest malicious compliance happened. They wanted me gone. Okay. I took my name tag and packed it away. I went into the photo studio and grabbed the kids' toys I had brought in to help get the young ones to cooperate. Babies don't really understand a stranger saying smile for the camera, but if you shake or rattle at them and make silly faces, they're very good at smiling for that. I cleaned up all of the things I had laid out neatly for easy preparation and put them back in storage. I cleaned up the counters to get rid of all the notes and passport photos that weren't claimed that day because that was what we were technically supposed to do. And then came the real part that this title refers to. Over my 9 months working there, a number of issues had come up with the things we worked with. For the passport photos, we needed a paper trimmer to slice off the edges quickly and neatly. We had one when I started, and then it broke. I brought in a replacement. It got broken too. Still, we needed one, so I brought in another replacement. We also had got our stapler stolen. No worries, I had one at home we could use. And the keys to the storage, the extra receipt paper, the passport paper, where we keep the deposits, where we keep our paper files, they were tiny. And the color of them was so bland that throughout the course of the day, they would get lost easily 30 times. I had bought a large blue fluffy keychain to attach to it with permission from the boss. Never lost the keys again, not one of us. We had also had a sign when I started there, which we could pop out, which said, "I'm in a photo shoot, please be patient, I'll be with you in a moment," or something along those lines, because there was often only one employee at a time, and they had to do the photo shoots and all of the passport photo drop-ins. Well, my boss accidentally dumped her coffee on that sign after she tripped one day. So I went out of the way to get a new one printed, bought a plastic sleeve for it, and set it up with a cardboard backing so it wouldn't break or get ruined. It was better than the old one. So, of course, when I left, I took my sign, my keychains, my paper trimmer, my stapler, my toys, and notably, my shutter button. See, the camera had a shutter button attached that would allow you to move about while snapping photos. Again, helped with the little ones because they don't understand directions, so you have to be able to physically draw their attention somewhere. This cord had gotten frayed and not replaced. It shocked me nasty enough to leave a burn, so I took it off the camera and brought in my own. I got a call the next day asking me how dare I steal the company's supplies. I calmly replied that I had just taken back the items that belonged to me, and that they could keep the broken paper trimmer that I had brought in. I even left them a pair of scissors I bought for a backup when the first paper cutter broke. I even bought them a box of paper clips for using since they didn't have a stapler anymore. The store closed down not 2 months later. Crazy how when you fire your hardest worker over things that you told them to do, and one missed shift, other employees are less than enthused about the chance of the same thing happening. And no one else worked nearly as hard to keep everything in the black as I did. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, I liked everyone except the manager, since it was only 2 other employees and they did their work well and treated me nicely. They just had a better sense of doing what they were paid for and nothing else. And for reference, the employee who the customer felt I was treating badly looked at our manager like she was insane and asked when I had done that, because she knew for a fact that the only time I raised my voice at either herself or the only other employee was because it was too loud for them to hear me otherwise. She apologized to me, said that she was worried it was her fault because she had been a little nervous that day because she was dealing with other things, and was worried that the customer had gotten the wrong impression because of that. Said employee then went on to have her own gallery show, leaving shortly after I was fired. Now, OP added an edit onto the end of the story because apparently a lot of people in the comments were asking why they worked 2 weeks after they were fired. They said, simply enough, there was no one to cover my shifts. One employee was in China celebrating New Year's with her grandparents. One was working on her own photos, which became her gallery show. And the manager would be very over 40 hours if she worked my shifts too. And I needed the money and wanted to say goodbye to some of the kids and parents who I took photos of every month. Relatively common. A lot of them wanted photos of their babies as they grew and changed. Though this has reminded me of one sweet thing they told me, so thanks for questioning it all. One of the families said they wouldn't be rebooking next month then because no one else had gotten their kid to take such nice photos. It felt awesome. It's been 6 years, so I had forgotten about that. So this place had a strike system where the strikes never fell off, so once you had 3 of them, you were done. It sounds to me like this place was just made to churn out staff so they could have cheaper people coming in on a regular basis. Knowing that these were the rules, I can't see any reason to be happy about going into work, because if you make one simple mistake, you're gonna get a strike, and that's gonna put a damper on your further employment there in the future. What a load of crap. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Practical Dad Advice. Malicious compliance to malicious compliance. Let's jump right in. I run a repair shop where I employ a bunch of local kids, ages 16 plus, to learn skills and make some money while we generally sit around and talk about the world while we fix things. We had a client come in with a busted electronic. We fixed it up for her and gave her a decent discount on the work. Her final bill for parts and 4 hours of labor was $100 even, discounted down from $220. She didn't like the bill. She didn't like the work. She claimed that we'd broken something else. She claimed that the kid who did the work didn't know what she was doing. She did, and I had supervised her. And that the kid who helped her in the front room was rude to her. He wasn't, but she didn't like the little pride flag pin he was wearing. She demanded to see the manager, so I popped out, listened to her tear into my kids, validated how she was feeling, but pointed out that the work she had asked for was done correctly, and her bill was due on pickup of the piece. The last straw for her came when she pulled out a credit card, and I had to inform her that we don't accept that particular card. She literally asked me, "Do you know who I am?" Which I didn't. Still don't care. And I told her we'd take a personal check. She wrote out a check, problem solved. I deposited the day's checks and got a note from my bank that one had bounced. Her check, of course. I called her the next day to inform her that her check had been returned for insufficient funds, and that she'd need to come in and pay her bill, plus the extra fee for a returned check. All of these fees, just to point this out, were clearly outlined on the service agreement she'd signed, and we'd already discounted her $120 just to be nice. Anyway, she rolls up into the office carrying a bag, and I knew exactly what was going on. She drops, of course, a bag of pennies on the front desk. She's breathing heavily. We're on the second floor and she'd taken the stairs. And she announces triumphantly that she's here to pay her bill. She just needs to go get the rest of our hard-earned money. Said with a sneer, of course. The kid at the front desk looks like he's about to cry, so I stop working on the thing I'm working on and take over. "How many more bags do you have?" I ask her, and she says that the nice people at the bank loaded them up in her car. She didn't count them. I told her that was fine. We'd wait for her to bring them all up and then settle her bill. She was expecting a bigger reaction, I think. Either that or she hadn't thought this through. 10,000 pennies, plus the extra $25 weighs a lot. And she just committed to carrying them through the parking lot and up a flight of stairs. One of my kids, bless his heart, offered to help her carry them. She refused. Finally, shaking and sweaty, she deposited the last of the bags on the countertop. The pennies were loose, not in coin rolls. She'd done some work to prove her point. What she hadn't counted on was that we'd need to count the pennies. While the other kids took care of other clients and fixed things in the back, the front desk guy and I counted up the pennies. She started to realize that this was going to take a while and tried to leave. I told her that she couldn't leave until we'd signed off on her bill, since at this point she was in violation of her service agreement and had passed a bad check. We couldn't just take her word for it, and I would inform our local constabulary if she left without paying. I was kinda talking out my butt, but she managed to tick me off a little. The other clients in the shop came and went, and we counted. Phone calls came in and were handled by my kids, and we counted. She sat down in a chair, folding steel, not super comfortable, stood up again, walked around the office, and we counted. After a while, she said, "Just forget it," and took out $125 in bills. We signed off on her agreement and she started to leave. Another one of my kids, bless his heart, asked her if she wanted help carrying the pennies back to her car. She looked at all of us with a face of sheer panic, mumbled, "No thank you, just keep them," and bolted. The whole shop was silent for a moment. Then one of the kids started giggling, and nobody could stop. People coming in thought we'd gone nuts, and I finally had to banish everybody to the back room until they could breathe again. We loaded the bags into my vehicle. We used the elevator she'd walked by a few times, took them to the bank, and used the coin machine to deposit them. Then wrote out a donation to our local shelter for the amount she'd dropped off. She posted something nasty on Facebook about it and got ratioed. She had, of course, posted earlier about what she was going to do, and she got called out with her own post. My favorite response was something like, "You said you were going to pay your bill in pennies. You paid your bill in pennies. What went wrong?" Please don't pay your bills in pennies, folks, especially if you're just doing it to be a d***. I think OP gained a whole lot of real-life karma points for this story. Number 1, they were helping out local youths. Number 2, they were patient with a butthole. Number 3, they were teaching youths how to deal with conflict calmly. And of course, they had a donation at the end for number 4. They didn't just pocket the money, and that right there is also a great lesson for the youths. This next story comes to us from EX Animus. Not giving me a written contract? Sure, let's jump right in. Longtime lurker, first time poster, this happened to my partner, but I'll try to tell it as if it's my own story for a better reading experience. I worked at a small coffee shop as a barista. On the first day, I told my boss, the owner, that I would like to sign a written contract, so that it's less likely to create conflicts about the working terms and conditions. He said, "I'd give you a written contract when you've passed probation." Okay, maybe he's environmentally friendly and wanted to save a tree or something. I asked if there would be more day offs after probation. He said, "Yeah, one more day off per month." 3 months gone by, which normally would mean past probation. I asked again for the offs. He said, "You must have been mistaken. It was unpaid public holidays before 3 months, but now they are paid public holidays, so it equals to one more off per month." Firstly, paid public holidays after 3 months of employment is a law in my place. It isn't some perk that he generously granted me, nor something that anyone in the workforce wouldn't know. Secondly, I asked him for the number of day offs, not the number of other kinds of rest days. The context in the conversation was entirely different. I mean, if he also counted annual leaves, PTO in my place, or sick leaves, that number could have pumped way up. I felt like he tricked me, but I couldn't prove that because anything he promised were only words. The one thing that made me decide to leave the place was that in COVID times, if a staff is tested positive, obviously the shop should close. Other staffs get tested and get professionals to deep clean the shop. But no, my boss decided to do none of that. A colleague got COVID. We were required to operate as usual, hiding the fact that we have a COVID positive staff from customers that were entering and drinking our products. It was even required to clean the shop with the usual apparatus. As a non-professional COVID cleaner and very likely COVID positive patient. Here comes the malicious compliance. In my place, if you pass probation, normally after 3 months as is aforementioned, you need 4 weeks notice. Within probation period, 1 week is enough. I handed in my letter. Boss said I need to stay 4 weeks so that he could find a replacement and have me train my successor, because normally that's how it works. I said no. You promised me a signed contract after probation. You didn't give me one. My offer wasn't reviewed, didn't get a raise, you didn't even tell me I passed probation. Thanks for not giving me that written contract. I'm gonna leave in a week. He tried to argue, but no legit points came out of him. The fallout. After I told him I quit, another barista also handed in his resignation letter. He needed 4 weeks though, and also a kitchen staff. My replacement sucks so much that he has given up teaching. The coffee shop has lost all staffs that can make good coffee, along with the skills that we carry. So in this case, you could say that the boss got roasted. OP put him in the espresso lane to justice. He didn't even have the decency to treat OP like a human being. At least now OP can hit the grounds running for a new job. I thought that was going to be a latte funnier than it was. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.